And then let's see. And
Mary, what's the time that you have? I think my clock is a little fast, but I don't know.
I have 12:01.
12:01, okay. Maybe one more minute, then we'll get started.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, I think I'll get started then. You guys are good? Okay. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to our first Women in Leadership Sacramento EmpowHer Speaker Series. Next slide. So we'll get started. Here is our agenda for today. And before we introduce the series and our panelists, I would like to briefly introduce you to the Women in Leadership Sacramento Club. Next slide, please. So we are a relatively young independent student club, just 2 years old, whose mission is to connect and support GSM's future women leaders through professional, educational, and social activities. We are open to all currently enrolled SAC MBA students, although our events are open to all GSM programs. We're also open to receiving input from you, the audience, on the types of events that will add value to your GSM experience. We held a general membership meeting last fall to gather input on the types of events and topics that would do just that. And I'm proud to say that despite the pandemic, we have been one of the most active clubs in the GSM, with previous events such as several speakers, networking event, and virtual yoga. And I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Sumedha Gulati, and I'm the president of Will Sacramento. Now I'll hand it over to my fellow board member, Mario, and the one who initiated the idea of EmpowHer, to introduce you to the series. Mario?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our inaugural EmpowHer Speakers event. This series is intended to amplify the voices of people right here in our GSM community, capitalizing on the experience our colleagues bring into the program, have built during our time together, and will pursue after graduating. We hope you'll enjoy today's session on entrepreneurship, and we hope you'll also join us for future sessions, such as one in the fall when we host an event to welcome our newest cohort. So thank you for being here and enjoy. And next I will pass it over to our co-hosts to introduce our panelists.
Hi, everyone. I have the honor of introducing Preet, and I'm really honored to do so. She graciously accepted when I volunteered her to be a part of the panel today. So Preet is wrapping up her first year at the GSM with a focus on finance and is targeting 2022 graduation. Not only is she the vice president of our Will Sacramento group, but she is also involved in the student association as the director of finance. And she's very involved outside of both the GSM and her own entrepreneurial endeavors. She's on the board of directors for the National Women Association of Business Owners in Sacramento. That's a mouthful. And she recently took on the role as foundation chair and CEO, where she previously held the role of VP of programs. So a little bit about her endeavors. So after she completed her undergraduate degree at UC Davis, she took part in an internship program for commercial real estate investing and ultimately founded GMP Capital Partners with her brother in 2014. Their investment firm provides financing and other customized structured products for commercial real estate deals, specializing in bridge loans and recapitalizations, restructures, note repurchases, and other special situations, as well as providing consulting services when it comes to analyzing and assessing properties, operators, markets, capital placement, capital formation, exposure risk, and exit strategy. So a lot of really great things in the real estate realm. So Preet, we're very excited to have you, and I can't wait to hear more about each role.
Awesome. Thank you, Meg. I have the pleasure of introducing Meredith Roberts. I happen to know Meredith through a mutual friend, and I'm just really excited that she also agreed to speak with us. So a little bit about Meredith. She is a second-year online MBA student with UC Davis. She's a teaching assistant at the GSM and consults in the energy sector on renewable projects in California. She is a co-founder of an EV charging startup that won the 2021 Big Bang competition this year. So that was super exciting to watch. And she's now working to grow this that new business. She was previously the director of external relations at Sierra Energy, a waste to energy technology startup based in Davis. And Meredith grew up in the Philadelphia region. She earned her Bachelor's of Science in Entomology at UC Davis. And she's been in the environmental field for over 18 years. She's been working in business development, strategic planning, communications, and fundraising for both private industry and the nonprofit sector. Her interests and research include strategy, technology, management, and organizational behavior. She is active in the local business community and serves on the Davis Chamber of Commerce Ambassador Committee, where she was chair from 2018 to 2020. Outside of her time working and in school, she can be found on the ski and hiking trails or at home in her garden. And welcome, Meredith. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce our panelist and my dear friend, Tony Correa. Tony is an MBA candidate, and he is a recipient of the 2021 James R. and Georgia K. Corbett Fellowship for the student entrepreneurs at UC Davis. Tony also has about 6 years of experience in the banking industry. Tony is the founder and CEO of Soma Loans Incorporated. Currently, that the business is in its early startup stage, and it is intended to disrupt the financial and peer-to-peer sectors. Tony, with that, has also pitched in a variety of contests. And most recently, Soma was a finalist for the UC Davis Big Bang business competition. Some of Tony's interest is really in helping others. He has assisted in nearly about maybe 35 early stage startups participating in the UC Berkeley Big Ideas contest. He's also helped develop the Innovation Network here at UC Davis, and occasionally guest speaks in local middle schools on a variety of topics around finance and entrepreneurship. All very relevant to the speaker series session. And with that, thank you, Tony, for being a participant in our series, and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So we have a set of questions for all of you today. The first question, I guess, is for everyone in the group, for Preet, Tony, and Meredith. So you guys can answer it however you guys please. Are there aspects about your skills or interests that particularly led you to entrepreneurship, and have you always wanted to be your own boss?
I can go ahead and kick it off. I think in some ways I've had the good fortune of having excellent bosses and also being my own boss in the past. So I worked a lot in nonprofits and then in the pricing industry, which are very different, but they each sort of led me to understand my strengths and my independence and my desire for that sort of independence of thinking and processing. So when I started out working for a startup here in Davis, it came with a lot of independence as well as a leadership role. And it also required a lot of budgeting my time. So I think for me, it was a matter of, I had learned so many skills that led to it. It seemed like a very natural progression. Now being back in consulting work again, and also being in the MBA program, I feel like being able to balance all these things at once is a pretty strong indicator that if you feel that way and you feel that you're able to juggle a lot of things, still manage your time and check all the boxes, that you're probably in a good trajectory towards either owning your own business or being in a ground level startup where you really have to do all the management very precisely.
Gosh, I'm going to speak next, just because I think it'll lead right into Preet's industry and expertise. Interestingly enough, I never really wanted to join a startup or be part of the startup community before joining the MBA program. My goal was always to work in a position for a company. And but since joining the MBA program, and actually interestingly, even yesterday, I heard a video about how entrepreneurial, just the mindset is super valuable in generating wealth. And why I say that, and why it will lead to maybe Preet's expertise, is you can be a doctor and earn $1 million. And if you don't understand tax codes, you don't understand how to kind of invest as an entrepreneur, you might get taxed, $750,000 of your income. If you're an entrepreneur, you know how to work with capital structures, you know how to invest, and you could actually maybe reduce your tax liability to nearly zero. I'm not saying go down the Trump route, but I am saying that it lifts a lot of people out of poverty, out of constraints, especially I would think minority groups and those who were always taught to do one thing. It could really lift a lot of people going the entrepreneurial route.
Yeah, so I'll just chime in after Tony. I think a lot of what Tony said really does resonate with me. And for me, really, it was the same thing as Tony. Entrepreneurship was not on the horizon for me. As Meg introduced me, and by the way, thank you, Meg, for volunteering me for this. I do appreciate that. You know, I was on the route to go to law school. I'm from a very traditional Indian family. And as you know, you either become a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And I didn't want to be a doctor. And I was like, I don't think I could be an engineer either. So law was the choice after that. And I ended up taking a year off to study for the LSAT. And that's when I found that internship. And it was really fascinating to learn about the financing side of real estate, and not just, you know, you own property, you manage it, whatever, you know, you have rentals, this and that. It was more about how do you finance this? How do you invest strategically to build that wealth, like Tony was saying? So for me, it wasn't something that I actually wanted to do. It's just when we got into it and I learned about it, and I was like, oh, there's an option where, you know, I don't have to go to 3 years of schooling. That was so that was great. It was really tempting at that time not to continue on to grad school because I was just tired with school. So, you know, we had a lot of family support, and that's when it decided, hey, like we can maybe attempt this. Obviously, entrepreneurship is really difficult. It's not the easiest thing. It's not for everyone. But I think if you have good mentors and everything else along the way, you really can succeed at it. And then a lot of it is just grit. And then so along that route is where I learned, you know, I do have strengths of, you know, leading and wanting to do all of this. And if, you know, we honed those strengths, and here we are today.
Thank you. Very insightful. So how has the MBA program shaped your career goals? Whoever would like to kick it off.
I can kick us off real quick. So for me, I think it's provided me with a lot of great tools that I did not have as I started out as an entrepreneur, because I had no experience with running a business or building a business even. So it has provided me with a lot of great tools of, you know, how do you run a business, you know, negotiations, how do you talk with other people. I think as for career goals, I'm going to stay the route that I'm on. I really love what I'm doing. So it's just helped strengthen the path that I'm on and provide me with tools where I can succeed going on in the future.
I guess I'll go next. This is a pretty tricky question for me because I'm not 100% sure what I want to do still. But that being said, I think that at least the MBA program has given me a skill set to be self-sufficient. My goal, and interestingly enough, I was raised as a ward of the court, so I had some struggles growing up with family, and one of those struggles actually led to me always feeling like I need a safety net, and that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't think entrepreneurial route was an option when I was younger, because I was so, I was so focused on security and safety. I think the greatest gift of the MBA program is it's allowed me to feel like I'm self-sufficient. It's given me, at the very least, confidence to believe in, it sounds a little cheesy, but believe in myself, or believe that I can kind of jump off the ledge a little bit and kind of, be okay. And I have what it takes to do what I need to do.
Yeah, I would agree with actually both Preet and Tony that it's that little bit of extra push, whether that's because of the connections that you've made and the people who are supporting you, or the tools and skills that we're learning, or it's being reinforced. But there's something about it just getting you over the edge on some of those insecurities and fears. And I know with my journey in the MBA program, at first I was just really excited to have a testing ground for all of these things and to be able to really look at it a little bit deeper. It had been a long time since I had made a study of something like that, a process like that, to be able to really slow everything down and then get input from my colleagues was a really big deal. And then it really turned into this huge network that I was creating and that other people seemed to be creating with me. And it was really this, you know, the women in leadership groups, other students, the colleagues in my class, just building this immense amount of energy towards this shared goal. That was really cool. And I think that's what drove a lot of that added confidence of coming to sort of the second year of the MBA. And so I think that similarly to Preet, my career goals haven't necessarily changed. I think they've just been really refined in the past couple years. And I think part of it is before you even accept into the MBA program, you're already starting to think about these things. You have your map a little bit more defined. And so it's this huge leap that you're making to come do this. And so to get to a point where you can say, all right, I feel pretty good about what I'm doing, what I have been doing. Now I just need to fine tune it. I think that was my goal, and I feel pretty good about that. I'm hoping to explore a few more things. Not too much, no more distractions. Got enough.
So the next question kind of goes hand in hand with the last one. In what ways has the MBA inspired you in your business venture / change the way you do / look at things? And that's for all three of you.
I'll kick this one off. You know, when Anna actually invited me to do this series, since that time I had been thinking a lot about what I wanted to say on this casting. And I think that it's kind of interesting because I see a pretty large juxtaposition between the entrepreneurial world or entrepreneurship, at least around UC Davis and some of the people that I've had the pleasure of interacting with, and traditional institutions. Namely, I won't point any names, but Exchange Bank. In that I feel like Exchange Bank is more traditional, and it's like the worlds are completely different because I see I see in the entrepreneurial world, I see that females are highly welcomed, at least in my perspective, and everyone is competing with each other and building cohorts with each other, and they're not known for really their gender or their identity, and more for their accomplishments or their ideas that they're bringing forward. In more traditional organizations, and I won't say this too loudly, I see that is very limited, and it's a lot about who you know, and you see a lot of, like, I would say, male-dominated executives. And one of the things that I constantly run into when I talk to senior leadership is, one, they always say, hey, we want to hire the best first, and we look for females to fill those positions. And recently, and actually I heard this from a female on a podcast, at first I agreed, you know, I said, hey, yeah, that's true. You know, you want the best first. There are so many women out there who are qualified. If you're not finding them for your teams, you're not searching hard enough. And that resonates with me for multiple reasons. One, you know, there's so many qualified people out there. And two, you want to bring a diverse background. You want to be looking for diversity within your organization because it makes you stronger and it makes you more adaptable and flexible, and it brings better ideas forward. And I think a lot of traditional organizations are missing that because, hey, they go to the golf course, they know someone who knows someone. And guess what? We like ourselves, so we end up choosing ourselves instead of the diverse background. And that may be a woman, it may be a minority group that we're excluding, but we are excluding. And trust me, I think it's 50% of females are in my program. And they are every bit as smart as me, if not smarter. So, I mean, go look. You guys need to be looking for those people who are qualified and can do the job. I don't remember what the question was, but I really wanted to bring that forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. I have a couple of things that I think are inspirational pieces. One is that the program has helped me understand vulnerability and why it's important. And, you know, Tony touched on a couple of things. specific to women in leadership positions. And this whole idea of vulnerability is usually shut down pretty early in career growth, at least for a lot of women that I know. And in my own experience, I've learned to really clam up and say, hey, that's off limits. We don't discuss that because that separates me from my colleagues who are male, or it separates me maybe in other demographic ways. And it doesn't serve me, or it hasn't in the past. And something that I've learned in the past couple of years in working on that is that, you know, I think things are changing. And I think vulnerability is a little more on the table again. And I will be challenging myself as I go forward, as I feel more confident in myself and a little further in my career, to be more vulnerable and to put that out there, you know, what I'm working with, when I'm struggling with who I am, a little bit more in the front, because that's who I am, that's what I need to lead with. And ultimately, if that's not acceptable, I'm in the wrong place. I'm barking up the wrong tree. And we've all spent a lot of time trying to do that, but at a certain point, certain stage, you just got to know when to go find something that's more amenable. And I believe, and I kind of joke, you know, the next generation will probably be like, why are you so stressed? Why do you struggle with these things? It's like, well, because when I had to do this, it was a fierce struggle. And I'm so thrilled that you don't have to think about these things, which of course is the goal. And the other thing that's really been inspiring, and I think this has fortunately been across the board, a little bit of a silver lining from COVID, is that people have connected more strongly with what they want to do. And I'm no exception. I've really made an effort to plan my day based on the things that I want to do. And that could be, you know, business related, working with my colleagues in starting new businesses. It could be working, you know, doing volunteer activities, or just reading a book. But whatever it is, and I know sometimes we don't get to choose, but if there is a choice, I've tried to be inspired to be more conscious of those choices and to align my daily map with what makes me happy, what's aligned with my future goals, and how I can be my most authentic, sort of open and vulnerable self.
Yeah, I'll be quick and short and just tag on to what Meredith said. I think vulnerability is one of the, you know, the factors that you do come to realize that you have to be okay with it. You know, you have to be okay with telling your story the way it is. And that's really one of the things I learned even before I came into the MBA program. I was writing my personal essays and whatever, and that's kind of where I started. I was like, okay, you have to tell your story, what you've gone through, because ultimately that's what's created you into who you are today and why you're coming into this program, you know. And that's really helped me to realize and inspire, you know, everything I'm learning through the MBA goes hand in hand with what I do at work, how I lead in my company, as well as the other roles that I've taken on in the community. And there are a lot of things that, yes, you know, I've learned just by doing, but then there are, you know, other things that I've learned specifically through the program, where it's like, you know, you interact with your peers, you're, you know, in one organization here in Will, yes, I'm the vice president. In another one, I'm doing director of finance, right? And it's different levels of leadership where you're at. And that's kind of a really strong aspect of entrepreneurship, is being able to balance all those levels, right? And play the roles that you're supposed to, and give back to those organizations that you're working with. And I think the MBA has really helped and inspire on that with, you know, you're working with all kinds of people from different backgrounds, and you learn so much about them, and it really helps you to build yourself up. So I think that's what I've taken from this program.
Very appreciated. And Tony, I get the banking stuff. I've been in banking for 6 years, so I appreciate the comments. So I'm going to just do some specifically tailored questions for each of you right now. The first one is for Meredith. What got you into clean energy, or how has a clean energy market changed for better or worse?
I don't think when I was in my undergrad at Davis studying bugs that I would have said I'd be in energy, because they are very distinctly different. And it probably would have been something I would have been very intimidated by because of the tech side of it. But my interest has always been in sustainability, in the challenges that environmental justice has faced. And I've done a lot of advocacy work since I can remember, even at a local level growing up, protecting open space and getting involved in initiatives that I was passionate about. So I wouldn't say it was a complete leap, but it was definitely a leap of faith because I think I finally realized I was interested in going into more of the tech angle because I could translate science into terms that everybody could understand, right? That was the whole point. If I could go from a science background and then be able to be that conduit, that translator, and get people excited about something, and particularly a new technology, that would be fantastic. I think it took me transitioning from nonprofit work to working in pricing for transportation in a for-profit environment to make me see those connection points and say, okay, now I need to find something that does all of this to combine. And that's why I came back out to California, where the energy sector is the hottest on the planet and the most exciting, and got involved in a startup that was really transitioning from a startup to a small business. And that was a really exciting path. So I chose to go into clean energy because I think I thought it had the most effect. I still do think it has the most effect. It's everywhere, it's ubiquitous, it's all of our challenge combined. And I think that it's changed, particularly in the area that I work in, which is waste and renewable energy. I think it's changed leaps and bounds. And one of the reasons why I was so excited to jump on board with In Charge and my colleagues Angel and Correa is because it was tackling a side of the industry that really needed a business solution to it. So it's a little different than what I was doing with waste energy, but certainly managing these energy challenges is what excites me, and where I think that here in California is where it needs to be on the ground floor still, and where we can launch interesting products that provide solutions for everyday use. So I'm sort of skirting on the edge of a new area of energy and resiliency, but my background has always in the energy sector been in how do we bring new technology, new solutions to market, and translate that to people so people can understand it and really get behind it in communities.
Thank you, Meredith. The next question is for Preet. What got you into investments, and what are your other community leadership roles?
Yeah, so I got into investments. I was always interested in it. My dad, he was really into buying, the single family rentals and that type of thing. And he was just getting into commercial when the 2008 housing crisis happened. And so he kind of held off with that. And that's when I started my undergrad at Davis. And, we helped him manage his portfolio that he had at the time, as well as a lot of his friends. And as we went through undergrad, I kind of saw like the different choices and steps people had taken with their portfolios and kind of how that ended up. And it just so happened we found that internship, and we learned a lot through there of kind of the things people were supposed to do and they didn't do, the choices they made, what they didn't know. Essentially, a lot of it was they didn't know a lot of things about investing, which is why they made the decisions they made. And so that kind of drove us to figure out, like, how can we help? Well, first it started out, with the immediate family and friends, like how can we help these people create that legacy? Because all of them were going after one thing. It was creating a legacy for the ongoing generations, a legacy of wealth, right? Building wealth. How do you just kind of keep creating that, building upon what you already have? And so that's really where it started, was how do you build this legacy? And that's how we started with, you private investors, you finance commercial properties, right? We built up a great network and everything. And from there, we've grown it more into direct investments now. So we don't do a lot of the bridge loans or things like that. We'll serve as an intermediary. Now, a lot of it is focused on direct investments into commercial real estate, into private equities, right? People have different interests, and that's what we try to cater to with these direct investments and helping them create that legacy. That's really where we got started. And that was kind of the dream of where we wanted to take this company. And we're slowly getting there. which is just really fascinating. And then for your second question, community leadership roles, it stems from a lot of the same ideas of wanting to help people. And it really went from a personal experience I had a few years ago. And it led me to realize that a lot of young women entrepreneurs and even older women entrepreneurs, someone who's worked in, like, say, a government position for a good chunk of her life, just went through retirement and now she wants to launch her business. There's not a lot of resources available for that, right? I couldn't find any when I was starting this company, and it was very difficult. We found a mentor, and that's what helped me. But my mentor was a guy. He's great. He's very supportive of women, but it wasn't a lot of those resources. So part of the role that I've taken on, as Meg had mentioned, for NABO, it's a women's business organization, and they do have men as members. It's not that they don't, they're all supporting members and they do a great job. But the role I've taken on is for the foundation, which is, it's a collaborative model aimed at supporting these young women entrepreneurs. So that's the goal, is to provide them resources, connect them with mentors, connect them with other entrepreneurs, other young women who are attempting to do the same thing. And it really serves to help those from, our underprivileged minorities, underprivileged communities in the Sacramento area. And so that's another aspect that I'm really passionate about, is just helping those entrepreneurs with the resources and whatever they need that I didn't have, because I totally understand what it's like not to have all of that and try to build it yourself as you're trying to build a business and like succeed through all of it. It's not an easy journey, and to provide those connections and those resources early on would really help a lot of these people. And they have wonderful ideas that would do amazing things for the community. They just need that extra support. So that's kind of where that stems from.
Thanks, Preet. Tony, so what got you into finance/loans, and then how does SOMA loans impact women?
I got into lending kind of haphazardly. I was looking for a job, and I graduated in communication. I studied communication at UC Santa Barbara. And then I was just looking for a temporary position at a bank, and I ended up getting raises, a lot of them, and I stuck around for that reason. And I think that's what led me to actually the MBA program, and what has led me to SOMA loans. And it's kind of just weird little left steps you find yourself going down, and you find yourself in a position where, hey, how can I direct myself a little bit, but also allowing for those left steps to kind of take you in directions you didn't really know was possible. SOMA loans, I would say, as it's set up now, is an opportunity for not just women, but for everyone who classifies themselves as somebody who may be unbanked. There's something like 40% of every American has less than $1,000 in savings in their bank account now. And many of those people do not have any ways of getting a loan if something happens to them. Let's say a car breaks down. Let's say an emergency arises. And what SOMA is hoping to do is to, one, allow every person to obtain a loan, and two, allow every single person to invest in a responsible way, where they can earn interest without worrying about their money disappearing from someone who doesn't repay. Just to give you some context of what SOMA is it's one person lending or borrowing from another person. So just like I might lend or borrow from Meredith, let's say, and we're sharing as a community money around. And then the platform's responsibility, so SOMA's responsibility, is to step in and repay the investor if the borrower stops paying. So if I'm the borrower and I'm paying Meredith and then I stop paying, the platform will step in and repay Meredith to give her, that gives all investors a peace of mind. It doesn't have wild fluctuations where you can lose a lot of money like you see in some of these alternative application platforms. Robinhood comes to mind. You can earn a lot of money on Robinhood, but you could also lose a lot of money. And then on the borrowing side, it's empowering borrowers, minority borrowers, female borrowers, to begin building their credit again, and obtaining, financing in various contexts. We do this largely through a lot of data analysis and financial analysis and credit score analysis. So we're using, information to make this happen. So, I mean, it does help women, but it also helps every unbanked person, every person who feels that they can't save money because they don't want to lose it in vessels like the stock market. And they go to a bank and they see that interest rates are, 0.25%. How can you get ahead with 0.25%? I mean, that's crazy. So we're just trying to solve some of those issues.
So last and final question from me, and this is for the entire group. If there's one piece of advice you could give a future entrepreneur, what would it be? And whoever would like to kick us off.
I'd like to kick us off. I just want to say that just go and try it. It's funny how I listened to a lot of podcasts. I know I've referenced like 3 while I've been talking, but I was listening to another one yesterday, and it was about how we have 24 hours in a day. 8 of those we spend sleeping, 8 of those we spend working, and then maybe 2 in transition and whatever. That gives us 4 hours a day, every single day, to improve ourselves, to pursue an idea, to work towards finding your own passions and what really makes you go in the business world and also in the hobby world. And I think by just dedicating even just 1 hour a day, we can move towards our goals. And that may end up towards entrepreneurial, the entrepreneurial route. It may end up towards, a career in something, but by dedicating an hour a day to improving your own life, you'll definitely discover more about yourself and push yourself in the right direction.
Yeah, I can chime in real quick too. First of all, I would agree with what Tony said. It's, focusing on that. I would also like to add, it's also some discipline. I've noticed I've had to really discipline myself as I've gone down this route of having that time in the morning of, I wake up at this time, I get through my workout, I do my meditation or whatever, and then I start my day. That's really, really helped me. So I would definitely tell a future entrepreneur to build that into your life somehow. It doesn't have to be in the same process of in the morning or whatever, but some type of routine that's for yourself, and take those opportunities that you don't think you want to, or they don't necessarily fit in with your path that you have right now. Just take those opportunities, because a lot of times those are the ones you don't know where they're going to lead. For me, that's what a lot of this path has been. It's been, do this internship, we'll see where it goes, and this is where it's led. Go join this group in Sacramento, and I became a board of director, and that's kind of played into what I want to do in the future, right? Is join more boards, do that type of thing. So you never know where those, one-off opportunities that you don't find useful at the time, where they're going to take you and how much you can learn from them. So I would definitely say, once in a while, take those and put your all into it and see where it takes you.
Yeah, I think my advice is on a similar vein, which is, network and find people, right? So you need to find your mentors, you need to build connections. People who launch and run successful businesses tend to be really great connectors, and they tend to be really great communicators. And think really hard about how you do communicate. Do you communicate well? Have people told you in the past that maybe you don't? It's you're not just in your own head, and usually very quickly you have other people who are relying on you, even if it's just your founders. I mean, that's a lot of responsibility. So I think just being very conscious of, are you going out and spending the time each day or, you know, once a week to network, make connections, so make sure that you are managing your network and continuing to engage people and build your relationship with people. And then communicating, are you communicating with the people you're working with your vendors, with your potential suppliers? Do they know you? Do they know what your business stands for? Because all of those things really matter when it comes down to a hard negotiation or a decision that they're making. And you want to always float to the top, right? You want to be the one that people think of when they think that's a solid group. Wow, you know, Meredith is really good at explaining things. She's not going to let me down. So again, it's that understanding who you are and what your strengths are. And then, you know, start with small wins. Start small, definitely go for it, but make sure you celebrate your wins as you go and that you don't hide everything and then launch some giant thing. Start with something tangible, something you can actually roll out. You know, don't be afraid to put something out in the market that will fail. You can always iterate. And this gets into, you know, the whole innovation mindset is just being able to get something out that's, you know, the $50 range, right? Try something, buy someone a cup of coffee, make that connection, get to know them. Maybe they can offer you some great insight that will save you thousands of dollars on a marketing study that you're planning to do. So those are the kinds of things I think you have to be thinking of early, very early in the business to save money, save time, be efficient, and really plow forward to success.
I'd also like to say, not to, along those same lines, I think that like a lot of people view entrepreneurship as inaccessible. You know, we're taught to kind of go to school so that we get into school, so that we get into school, so that we can get a good job. And I think that the entrepreneurship route is neglected in a lot of ways. And I think that I personally believe that it's so important to promote it as a way that is accessible, like another route, versus something that you kind of have to like be a maverick in to try or to attempt, because I think that really limits people's ability to give it a try. There's so many ways you can do entrepreneurship. It's incredible, you know. So I think that I just want to iterate that it is possible for everybody. It's not just you know, you don't have to be a maverick to move towards that route. And I just think it's important to say, just because I don't think there's enough entrepreneurship, or at least enough attention given to it as a possibility. Yeah.
Thank you so much to all of you. So we're going to open it up to any questions from anyone else. So if anybody has anything, you can raise your hand or just chime in, whatever's easier for you.
Yeah, we have one question in the chat from Angel. So there are highs and lows to entrepreneurship, and innovation isn't a linear process. How do you manage the uncertainties? If any of our panelists would like to take that one.
Yeah, I think I learned that from reading this book. It was How to Not Worry and Live Your Life. I think that was really, really helpful in managing these uncertainties. Essentially, when you worry about things, you go through them twice, right? Once just in your head, and then once when it actually happens. And that was really eye-opening for me, because it's like, know your plan, you know, have your plan of, if this happens, this is how I'm going to go forward. If this happens, this is how I'm going to go forward. Have those options. But then at the end of the day, I just go about it as, I don't worry about it. I try not to. And I know I have a couple options if with whatever happens. And once you have that plan, you don't worry about it, right? There's always going to be uncertainties. I think that's just, it goes with, I think it goes with any industry, anything you're in, even if you're working for an employer, there's always certain uncertainties that you're dealing with. And that's how I've learned to kind of deal with them and go through them, is have your backup plans, have that thought out through before, and then just, you know, work through it as if it has not happened yet. That's really helped me. So Tony, Meredith.
I'll just say for leading on what Tony was saying, because I think it is really important that, there's not one single path. And as Preet was, I mean, we're all different. We're all going to manage our stress and the ups and downs differently. I think having more people enter the entrepreneurial space is helpful in that, to having more diversity of entrepreneurs, more female entrepreneurs. Just diversity in general is so helpful to be able to reach out and say, okay, this is impacting people differently because everyone is so different. And it's not just business as usual for everybody when you are up against things. But I like the idea that, you sort of try to celebrate those highs, don't forget to do that. But then lows, have your sounding board, have your mentors, have your personal connections, be really empathetic towards yourself, because trust me, you're having the worst day. People aren't necessarily seeing how you feel. And it's a lot of it is so internalized when you're facing a challenge. That said, if you can have somebody to talk through it with, that usually is helpful, and somebody who can take that and have, sort of positive brainstorming session. I always find that super useful. I'll tell my colleagues what's going on, and typically they'll say, Meredith, you've got all these options, you have all these paths. I think you just need to sit down and think about it a little bit more. But I love the idea too, is how to not worry, and to sort of look for, are things a distraction from what the goals are? Are you being bogged down by things that you have no control over? Are you trying to perform risk assessments constantly on something that is not going to be an issue until a later stage in the development of the company? And so one of the biggest advices that my new group in charge got was really to try and curtail that early and say, you can't plan for everything. So the ups and downs can sometimes come because you've tried to plan and micromanage everything. Whereas if you can just have a baseline of, this is what we need to get to, and if things happen that I don't expect, we have a contingency, we've not blown our entire budget on this, we pick up and keep moving. So I think that's important. And yeah, self-care comes in as a huge part of that too. A big proponent of that. You gotta be well in order to make good decisions.
I'll add on to Meredith's just a little bit. I think at least what I got from what Meredith was saying is that you kind of have to keep your eye on the prize a little bit. And I'm kind of conflicted between like full-heartedly pursuing an idea, in this case, a business idea, and having like a contingency plan. Because there's, in some ways, you don't want the contingency plan to eat up all of your attention and focus on your main goal. But in the same sense, it's also important to have the wherewithal to know if your target market is changing, if there's a feature or there's a process that's not working. And I think that it's this is almost, I would think, is the artistic balance in entrepreneurship, is because you want to focus so much on moving forward in a direction. And at the same time, you have to have the artistic ability to know when to pivot. And I'm not sure that there's a good way to know, or trigger to know, or signal to know when to pivot. I think that's kind of what separates a good entrepreneur from a lackluster one. And I know that, that falls in line actually perfectly with kind of the linear movement of entrepreneurship. It falls in line with that book I just recommended, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's about doing things kind of in a quality way. If you're focused on what you're doing in the present, and you're giving attention to things that are happening in the present, and doing things that may require extra detail or attention, then I think that you're in good shape. But I think there's kind of a quality aspect, kind of an unknown, that you need to pivot now, or you may, not need to pivot. Those are kind of the untold kind of hero moments in entrepreneurship, I think.
Yeah, and I'll just add one other thing, because I think this is important. But even if you are not, let's say you're in a job, you're not starting a company right away, but you're thinking about doing that, and you're thinking about launching. No matter where you are, you can always still practice is your innovation and entrepreneurship, even if it's intrapreneurship, right? There's always be open to opportunities to even do that from within an organization and an existing structure, because that can lead to really amazing things as well. It doesn't always have to be you on the lonely hill going off by yourself. And of course, we all know that's not actually how innovation happens. But there is something to be said for just keeping that mindset no matter where you are, because I think it's beneficial to ourselves as people that want to be growing and learning, but also it's good for business to have those conversations and to have a growth mindset in existing businesses.
Okay. And I know we had one question in the chat about your most influential books or podcasts. So if you want to respond to that one in the chat, I see some of you already have, and we can move on to how important is capital versus personal investment. And we just are running out of time. So that's the reason behind that one.
I'll make mine really quick. Put your money where your mouth is. I think at some point, if you're gonna pursue something, you have to kind of commit some money. Money is energy in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think you're gonna have to put some money where your mouth is if you're pursuing it as a serious venture. I mean, maybe it's not a serious venture though, and you're just kind of, or you get lucky, you know, someone from Stanford who has a venture capital friend, and game over.
Yeah, I would have to agree. They both go hand in hand.
Yeah, it just depends on how you want to tackle it. Do you want to have personal investment first? Do you want to be bootstrapping for a while? Depends on how much you want to give away of your company too. You know, once you have, if you take out loans or if you get investors involved, then you lose some control. You have more stakeholders, so you have to really firm on when you want to do that and if that's the right move for the business. So that's why I dropped both in the chat, friends and family.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We are actually coming up on the end of our time, and we want to again really thank the panelists for their insights and telling us about your journeys in both your entrepreneurship and in the MBA program, and really want to just thank you guys for all these insights. And I love how our conversation it was a mix of the practical, where put your money where your mouth is, and also talking about like philosophical approaches to leadership, vulnerability, and also the self-care aspect of renewing yourself as a leader. So I really love all the insights that we've gotten from you guys and appreciate it. And thank you, Preet, Meredith, and Tony for being here with us today. And I wanted to, just say that we're really happy that you were able to make it here and talk to us about your experiences. So with that, I also wanted to thank, if we can move to the next slide, our WILSAC board as well, without which we could, a lot of effort put in to put this event together, to coordinate, to reach out. Especially want to thank Brooke and Marie, a lot of behind the scenes work for the marketing and programming. And then also our directors of membership, finance, cross-campus liaison, Baldeep, Anna, Meg, Mario, and then Preet was our inside person for our questions and other things as we were planning. So I just want to thank everyone, as well the audience as well, for being here and giving us your time. And we hope that you enjoyed our programming and will continue to support us in future programming. Now, if you If you have a few extra minutes, we did want to take a screenshot with everyone who's present. So whoever would like to open up their cameras, we want to take a screenshot with the panelists and the audience. So Marie, if you wanted to, you can do a countdown, or is everyone on?
Yeah, we're definitely, we're about at time, so we'll just do one real quick. So 1, 2, 3.
Tony, I liked your thumbs up. What happened to your thumbs up?
So thank you everyone for attending. And that's a wrap. And if you do have recommendations on future panelists or subjects, please send them in.
Thank you. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Meredith,
Tony, and audience.
Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good week.